We're following a legal format for an annual general meeting for Hanover, so it may feel a bit formal at times, but we're trying to follow the formal process. So we're on to agenda item 2, which is apologies for the meeting, and that's over to Wendy.
Okay, so thank you for attending today. With the people that we have here in the room who are members, the apologies and proxy votes that we have, we're actually quoted and with the people online. So we have a full list of I think it's 32 people that are actually available here today. So we are quoted, so that allows us to continue today. So the list of apologies will be appended to the back of the minutes. Thank you.
Okay, and that takes us on then to agenda item 3, which are the minutes of the 2024 annual general meeting. So those minutes were sent to members as part of the AGM paperwork. There were no matters arising from the minutes that need to be brought to members' attention. So I'm going to invite questions or comments on the accuracy of the minutes at that stage. So if there are no questions or comments on the accuracy of the minutes, I can take that as a true and accurate record from the 2024 annual general meeting, and I'll sign those minutes after the meeting. I'm just going to pause a second. I think we have some people playing. So I think that takes us to agenda item 4, which is the chairperson's annual report. And I'm just going to come to the lectern. I just have a few comments to make on presenting that annual report. I just wanted to reflect on a few issues that are in the annual accounts and in the paper for the annual general meeting. In those papers, that is a big long read, but they do contain a summary reflection on the performance of the association for the past year. So I'm just going to draw out my own reflections on that performance and maybe look a little bit forward to the future. So firstly, I think when you're looking at those accounts, it's really important to note that Hanover is a registered social landlord. It is not a profit-making institution. So everything that we make in terms of surpluses in the annual accounts, we do it for a purpose. And that purpose is to inform the strategic objectives of the organisation. So we're reinvesting any money that we make in our properties, to the lighting, property to the lighting, structure, windows, kitchens, and so on. So we are reinvesting it on services to tenants. So a key focus for the board and for the management team try to make sure that living in a Hanover home is comfortable, safe, and you get a good responsive service. And you'll see a number of performance statistics within the accounts which tell you really quite clearly how we're doing across a whole range of these performance stats. And it also looks about investment for the future, so investing in digital, investing in our workforce. All of this is around doing the best that we possibly can for our tenants. We get the majority of our income from rents, and when we're setting rents, because I know this is a really important issue for anyone living in a Hanover home, is how much do we have to pay for that home? And one of the benefits of being a tenant in a registered social landlord is one, we're not profit making, so we are investing all of that back into the state, and that has helped boards and management team maintain affordable rents, and we've been very focused on trying to maintain affordable rents, which keep us resilient as an organisation for the future. Also try the best that we can to invest in our properties and our services for tenants. So the accounts reported a £3.3 million surplus for the year. All of that again is to fund our strategic priorities. Total reserves are around 45 million, and I think maybe Angela and others will talk about how we intend to use those strategic reserves going forward. Loan debt is around 40 million, so the amount we borrow is sitting around the 40 million mark. We have to finance that debt, so we have to pay interest and principal on that debt over the lifetime of the loan. And it's really important that we manage that carefully and well, so we are a well-managed financial organisation. And all of that places us well for the future. Our results are strong. We're a financially healthy housing association, and we're fit for the future, which is really important for us and for the youth. It gives you assurance that we are well-run, well-managed organisation. This year, for example, we invested about 8.3 million into our housing stock, and 1.1 million into structural repairs, £2 million was spent on roof repairs, 1.5 million we spent on windows, 500,000 on kitchens, bathrooms, and doors. We spent £900,000 on boilers and heating, and we spent just under £2 million on intercommon safety and security within our building. Overall, we spent 8.3 million. So what I'm saying about reinvesting, we made a £3.3 million surplus. We invested 8.2 million into this state. When we're looking about going forward, just a reflection on some of the challenges that we face as a housing association. We're not just Hanover, but every housing association going forward. One is the future is going to be much more focused on IT and digital, the use of AI, generative AI, how we use data, how we enable access to our services really simply for older people. We are a housing association for older people. We want to improve the levels of customer satisfaction. So there's how satisfied our tenants are with the services that we provide. That's gone up really significantly in the last year. That level of satisfaction, but it's not really what it's. So we are still really focused on what can we do better as an organisation to improve engagement with our tenants and raise those satisfaction levels. We want to invest in our workforce. If we have good people, well trained, delivering services, happy in their work, coming every single day, feeling they're making a difference, and that will mean that the services we give to our tenants are better. So we want to really focus on improving how our workforce are, how capable they are, and how motivated they are, and how much of a difference it can make. We want to invest in our assets. We are housing associations, which we do. This is part of the reason why we're here, and it's going to continue to be a key strategic focus. All of this that I've been saying about Hanover and its positioning is largely around a number of things. One of them is the strength of our leadership team. We have a really, I'm very proud to say this, a really strong leadership team and a really strong and motivated workforce already in Hanover. We're not starting from a poor position, we're starting from a real position of strength. We're financially strong, we have good leadership, we have a strong board. And this is my last year as chair of the board. I'll be handing over to Margaret, the rest of you sitting over there. And I think that should give lots of confidence to the tenants of Hanover that our focus is in the right areas and that we're making a difference. Just some final thoughts from me. One is around we are a highly regulated association, and the regulator also places it highly. So this is just not me saying that Hanover is a well-respected organisation. It's also our external auditors are saying this, our internal auditors are saying this, and the regulator is saying this about it. So I'm going to stop there. Simply some reflections from me, and hopefully that gives you a flavour of some of what we've been doing over the past year, where Hanover is positioned now, and some of the challenges we face in the future. So thank you for that. So I think that takes us to agenda item 5, which is the annual financial statements. And the annual financial statements are in your AGM pack. They were approved by the board on the 21st of August. And I'm going to hand you over to Donna Henderson, our Strategic Director of Finance, to present the annual accounts.
I'm trying to still say for me, 50.7 million in surplus. That's down 4.1% from the previous year, and that's mainly due to our extent and background services, which we do. We have an operating surplus of 3.25 million, which was broadly similar to 2024. Okay, so. And an overall surplus of the year of 917,000. Our closing cash balance was 3.7 million, and as Gary had mentioned, we were compliant with the statutory housing regulators. During 2025, Hanover had 24 strategic projects that we were undertaking, and we completed year 3 of our corporate strategy. Our voice time improved to 67 days following the 2024 level of 76 days, and it's actually substantially improved commercial management. Our repairs, we got 88% of our repairs were completed right first time, and the SHQS compliance was 83.9% in relation to our overall stock. As Eric mentioned, we made capital investment of 8.3 million last year, and you can see that up quite a lot on the previous year of 4.4 million. Probably spent about 8 million this year as well. Our new employee engagement group, our voice, was launched in the financial year, and that's proven to be a great success. Key points in terms of our governance and risks. We have got strong governance with our audit performance and risk committee, and we also have a our main risks, as you might expect, are the economic uncertainty that we have.
Yes. Sorry, Donna, could you pull that closer to you as a microphone? Because one of them.
Can you hear me now?
No. Oh, no.
Can you hear me now?
Try again.
Hello.
Oh, there we go.
You need me to go back? Are you okay? Okay. So, in terms of key governance points and risk, we have strong governance in our organisation, but not just our board, but our audit performance and risk committee and our people committee as well. The main risks, which you might understand, are the economic uncertainty just now, particular challenge around national insurance, but also cybercrime and the challenges of delivering our strategy, and obviously net zero compliance as well. We completed the first phase of our treasury review in that year, and we're doing the second phase this year. Our gearing remains low, so that's the level of debt we carry at 19% of our net worth. We adopted our first economic, social and governance report in last year, and we're working on the second one just now. And we became a living wage employer as well, and we have been recognised as one of the world's for our staff and wellbeing initiatives within the year. In terms of the outlook for 24-25, apologies. In terms of outlook for 24-25, there'll be a big focus this year on our new asset management strategy and customer satisfaction surveys. I'll just talk louder. As Gary has mentioned, they're only increased, but not quite where we want them to be as yet. We're right in the depths of introducing a new housing management system, a new finance system, and they should go live on the 1st of April next year. And we are called, it should be And we are continuing investment in digital transformation and net zero. Long-term forecasts show viability despite the challenges that we've got from an economic perspective and agency and inflation and interest. That's all I have to say on the accounts at this point, but I'm happy to take any questions if anyone has any.
Maybe just pause for a minute just to see. Yes.
Hello, hello, hello.
Oh, ah, there you go.
It keeps doing that,
Yeah,
Richard. Doing that, Richard, though.
It lasts about 10 seconds.
Does anyone have any questions?
What were you saying?
No.
Brilliant.
Okay, introduce now Andy from our auditors, AAB, and he's going to talk about the audit performance.
Right. That's not working, is it?
No.
Right.
A battery needs maybe.
I can see what batteries are in it. Hopefully not. Hello, so I'm Andy Shaw. I'm an audit partner at AAB, so I'm the external auditor. Already.
Shout. Shout.
Other people on Teams here.
Yeah.
I'm shouting.
Yes.
Yep.
Yep.
I'm an audit partner at AAB. I'm the external auditor. I'm really pleased to be here today to provide a statement on the financial statements. So the audit for the year ended 31st March 2025 is our 5th year as auditor. And myself and the rest of the audit team are really appreciative to Donna and the rest of the finance team for their support during the audit. The audit process was smooth and progressed to the required timetable. Now, the responsibilities of AAB as auditor are set out within the financial statements that we have. Our objectives are to obtain reasonable assurance about whether the financial statements are free from material misstatement, whether due to fraud or error. And reasonable assurance is a high level of assurance, but it's not a guarantee. It is the responsibility of the board to prepare the financial statements in such a way that they give a true and fair view of the association. As we perform the external audit, we need to think about which areas of the financial statements are at most risk of material misstatement, and we focus our work on those areas. So the areas we particularly focus on are the valuation of the association's participation in the Scottish Housing Association's pension scheme, the liability on the balance sheet. There's the management override of controls fraud risk, so a risk that management may override the control environment. That exists in any entity and it's not specific to Hanover. We focus on debtor provision valuation, and accounting for property development. And this year we also included this building, which has become an investment property part of it during the year. We also focus on accounting for service charges. So across all these areas, we have concluded that the financial statements are free from material misstatement. We've concluded that the accounting policies are appropriate and there are no unadjusted audit misstatements in preparing the financial statements. Another area included within our auditor's report is the extent to which the audit is capable of detecting irregularities, including fraud. An irregularity could be a non-compliance with regulations or laws. We set out within the auditor's report our framework, and we've concluded that there are no material matters to bring to our attention. The board has prepared the financial statements on a going concern basis, which means that the association has the required funds to meet all its debts over the year ahead. We challenge the financial forecasts in order to form our own opinion, and we concur with the board that the association is a going concern. So on behalf of AAB, I have issued an unqualified audit opinion. And that states that the financial statements give a true and fair view of the association's affairs, that they've been properly prepared in accordance with the accepted accounting practice, that they've been prepared in accordance with the regulations. Providing any opinion, I need to be independent of the association, and I can confirm that I am independent. That concludes the areas for me to cover, with the key takeaway being the unqualified audit opinion. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Andy, and thank you, Donna. Are there any questions for Andy before for the external auditor before I move on? Just to check whether there are any. Okay, I mean, it's an exhaustive process to get an external audit and if you look at the annual accounts, they go on for pages and pages and pages, and it's an exhaustive process. And it's a true test of the financial diligence, really, of the finance team. And it's a credit to Hanover to get such a clean opinion. And, you know, I think that's something we're rightly proud of within the association. So that takes us on to agenda item 6, which is the election of board members. So there's a short paper included in the AGM pack, which has been mailed out to members. And I just want to highlight a few areas within that paper. Firstly, there are 2 board members retiring. I am one of those board members, and Fraser Mitchell is also retiring after many years on the board. In planning ahead for this, so obviously the changes in the board happen over time. We've gone through quite a significant board member recruitment exercise. We've co-opted 4 new members at the May and August board meetings. And we are seeking to appoint these 4 new board members. And maybe if I hand over to Wendy at this point, who will take the rest of that forward.
Yeah. So we have 4 new board members who have been co-opted. And those are Robin Blacklock. So Robin can give a wee wave. We have Nicola Cooper on the screen as well. There she is. Chris Elliott.
Also,
He is on the screen, but his camera's not on, so that's fine.
well, there he is.
There he is. There he is. It's lovely there. We wave. And Andrew Wilson as well. Watson. And then we also have 2 board members who are currently board members who have to retire. All board members have to retire after 3 years under their current rules, and that is James Rowney, who is there, and Margaret Wariski, who is a lady there. So we have 6 board members to be appointed, and we're looking for a proposer and a seconder from the membership to do that. So if you're happy to do that, please raise your hand. Ashley and Gary, you do that as well. That's great. All board members appointed for the year ahead, which is great. Thank you.
So thank you, Wendy. And this takes us to agenda item 7, which is the Chief Executive's report. And Angela Curry is going to take that forward.
Thank you. I would break with tradition a little bit this afternoon and talk a little bit more about the external environment, given the unique position we are in at the moment in this country. But before I get started, can I just check you can all hear me without a microphone, or if you'd like me to use the microphone?
It's not working. It's not. Sorry to say.
That's good. I'm used to having to talk loud. So welcome everyone, great to see you. But today I do want to reflect a little bit on the year that's gone by, but also talk a little bit about what the next period of time presents in terms of an opportunity. So we are in now year 4 of a 5-year corporate strategy. And our AGM is focused on looking at the year that has gone by, that ended 6 months ago, which is always a little bit strange at an AGM because you're talking about something that happened some time ago. But it's fair to say that year 3 of our strategy delivered on a number of major projects for the organisation. And I've put some of them up there on screen, but I won't go into them in any detail. But we obviously contain a lot of information about those successes in the financial statements that we send out as part of our AGM. But we're in a very interesting context and set of challenges as a country and as an organisation. And I've put some of those contextual bits up there on the screen, and I'm not going to go through them all, but there's a couple worth mentioning that are really important for us as an organisation. The first is that this country is in the grip of what is being called a housing emergency, as if it's just happened. It's been brewing for decades, and it's a crisis that many of us predicted was going to happen and has happened. We are also in a very changing economic environment at the moment. And in particular, we have a whole range of challenges, including this year, very unexpectedly, having to pay much higher costs in terms of employers' national insurance, which brought over £500,000 of unexpected costs to this business. And we operate in quite a constrained environment in a lot of ways. And one of those, in particular at the moment, is complete global uncertainty about what might happen next. We saw a couple of years ago, following the invasion of Ukraine, that our fuel costs that we have to pay for heating our homes went up massively as part of our contract renewal. And we did not see that coming. So what might happen in the next few years, because of what's going on globally, is very, very hard to predict. And of course, internally, we've got some changes to address, and none more so than we've got a new chairperson from today and a bunch of new board members as well, which will bring a different dynamic to running the organisation and a very positive one. So we are, however, a country in need for a number of reasons. We have all this uncertainty and these challenges facing us, but we need to be ready and on front foot to influence the next government around the need for housing for older people in Scotland. And there are two really significant challenges that we have as a country. The one is the massive increase in the number of older people we have as a country and as a society, and the huge health inequalities that still exist in this country. Now, I know most of you actually know this inside out, because you can't not know this. But see, when you look at this graph, and every time that I do look at this graph, I take a sharp intake of breath. Because yes, we're acutely aware there is going to be a much higher proportion of older people in this country. But alongside that, we have a huge decrease in the number of working age people. And when I think about the challenges we have right now to recruit people into the care and support sector, imagine what it's going to be like in 20 years' time. So we've got some real challenges as a country to try and address over the next period of time. We also have a huge problem around health inequality. And I don't know if any of you pay any attention to this data, but it is stark. If you live in an affluent area, you're likely to live 12 years longer than someone who lives in an area of deprivation. And in a modern society, that seems bonkers, doesn't it? So the graph on the right, the two graphs, are the difference between male and female in terms of life expectancy. So there's a real challenge for those who are particularly the lower income end in our society in terms of their expected healthy outcomes. A couple of other graphs that are really worth showing, and apologies, you two can't really see them sitting there with your back to it. Well, we can know you've got it, brilliant. So what the graph on the left shows is after a little blip because of COVID, we are living a bit longer, which is great news, isn't it? And the projections that have recently been updated again show that improving ever so slightly again. So we are living longer, which is wonderful. But see, when you look at the data on the right, we are getting sicker earlier and it declines quite rapidly. And it's far worse if you're in any area of deprivation or lower income families and so on. And we are, and on that graph, it shows comparisons with England and Wales. We are by far the worst. And in fact, not that long ago, we had a visit from a delegation. Actually, you were there as well. I can't remember if they were the French one or the Netherlands one, but they came to see us because we are the sixth man of Europe. Not us, as in anyone in this room, but as a country. They wanted to come and talk to us about what we were doing as a nation, because we're the sixth man of Europe. And it's quite a stark reminder of the challenges that we have. So it goes without saying, we are living longer, but we have many health issues in particular parts of our population. And we know without a doubt, housing is a key determinant of your health. And Ashley and I could probably list at least a dozen studies that we can recall off the top of our head that absolutely state housing is a key factor in your health. Of course it is. So there is a massive shortage in this country, and that is undeniable. And we've just seen some research published again recently about the gap there is in terms of housing in this country, particularly affordable housing. When we try to assess the size of the gap, there's not a huge amount of data that helps us understand for older people or people with disabilities what the size of the gap is. There is some data out there. There was a big equality study done a good few years ago, which at that point pointed to a huge gap in wheelchair accessible housing in the country, which again is probably no surprise to most of us, given a lot of our stock is much older and was never designed to be wheelchair accessible. But there are around 10,000 and more people on our waiting lists for social housing who have a disability or are a wheelchair user. There have been some attempts in the past to quantify the size of the gap. A couple of years ago, the Housing with Care Task Force in Scotland did a study to look at what's the gap for the housing with care, a very specific model of housing. What is the gap? And they reckoned there was about 50,000 units short in 2022. But as you can see from the graph on the right-hand side there, that gap just massively increases as we get through to 2036. And we're looking at 70,000 to 80,000 homes short in this country that is accessible or has that housing with care element. So it's a really stark set of data. We don't have national statistics on specifically older people's housing that I can easily go to and pick up every year because it's not counted. Which in a country with that demographic shift coming our way at 100 miles an hour, you'd think there would be a real focus on more of the housing element of those statistics. So it's quite an interesting one. So we've got an election next year, so we've got a massive opportunity to try and influence the political parties, haven't we? So I think we should absolutely spend the next 6 months doing as much as we can. So as a result, we've created something called our manifesto action plan to try and influence the political parties. So there's a number of things in there, including a document called our manifesto asks. We're also trying to pin down a date to meet with the new Cabinet Secretary and writing a whole load of opinion pieces to be published and meet with key people and join in with others in the sector to do as much as we can. The latest polling predictions very clearly say SNP are going to continue to be running the country. But again, they will have a minority government, so they will have to form an alliance with at least one other party to be able to get anything passed in terms of decisions. And the latest data I saw, reform was hot on the heel of Labour's Labour in terms of predicted seats, which is going to be a very interesting period of time for us as a country, isn't it? But the current government have made a few changes recently. I don't know if you're aware of them. So one of the first things that gives us a bit of hope is that we have for the first time got a cabinet secretary for housing rather than somebody just at ministerial level. So that's really good, and our new cab secretary is called Mary McCallan, and she's young, enthusiastic, and really getting to grips with the brief. But prior to coming into that brief a few months ago, she didn't know anything about housing, or she would have known, some of things, but she's obviously on a very steep learning curve. And we're hoping that she's going to attend a round table that we're holding, hopefully the month after next in November in this room. So she's obviously doing all the rounds at the moment to get to meet everyone and hear all the time. Because we also are a registered care and support provider, we also are very interested in who holds the portfolio for social care. And that minister, again, the reshuffle that happened recently has changed, and it's now Tom Arthur. And again, he is getting to grips with his brief in this area and making very promising noises about working with the sector. And I had an opportunity to spend some time with him on Monday, and he's making some great noises. But again, at this point in time, it's noises rather than action. So it's a real interesting direction of travel for current government. So our asks, our manifesto asks, are shaping up still, but so far there are 5 3 months. We need a commitment to more homes for older people, and so we need a mechanism for doing that. That's surely the first and main thing. The next one then, it has to be accessible housing, so it has to be adaptable or already accessible, whether you have mobility issues or potentially a wheelchair user in the future. We need to invest in the support services that allow people to stay at home, because right now that is being eroded, and it's almost non-existent at the moment from a housing support perspective. We also have a real issue, like most social landlords do in Scotland, in that most of our homes are quite old now. And to continue to invest in them means that if we wanted to, we could put all our money in our existing homes and not build new houses. But that would be addressing the biggest problem that we have, is it? So if we don't get help to invest in our existing stock going forward, we won't be able to build as many homes as we would like to do. So we need a grown-up discussion about the funding regime in Scotland that would allow us to do both. And the final one is that we don't actually have an older people strategy in Scotland that covers health, housing and social care. And we used to have one, but it ran out in about 2021. So we are going to argue for a strategy and a vision for the country that is now joined up. And we can see how we could influence that strategy going forward. So to help us really focus on this issue, we're going to talk about it quite a bit in our next board strategy day, which is at the end of the month. So there'll be a big focus on that, and we're going to learn some lessons from what's happened down in England over the last 2 years, where there has been a focus on older people's housing. And we're going to use our strategic positioning and our influence as the largest specialist housing provider in Scotland to get a seat at the table with the political parties and really try and influence what comes next for the new government. So that's all I was going to say. It's a bit of was on my soapbox there, wasn't it? Any questions or thoughts about any of that before we move on? Okay, great. I'm not quite finished. So it's a big day for us because we've got to say a thanks to Gary and stepping down from the board today, and of course stepping down as chair. And Gary, along with Fraser, who can't be with us today, have had 20 years between them on our board. So that is a significant contribution as a volunteer to this organisation, and we are deeply grateful for that. So can you join me in thanking her?
Yeah, thank you, Angela. And you can see some of the future challenges facing Hanover are really quite significant, aren't they? I think that's really enlightening, the view from the Chief Exec. I'm going to go to agenda item number 8, which is the appointment of our external auditors. And we've already heard from Andy Shaw from AAB earlier about the audit of the financial statements. And following a further procurement exercise carried out this year, we would like to reappoint AAB as our external auditors for the forthcoming year. And I need a proposer and someone to second that motion. So I'm looking for some board members to see Margaret and Rob. Yeah. So thank you for that. And Andy, thank you again for all your help with the board and supporting Donna and so on. This takes us to agenda item 9, which is any other competent business. So just to ask any questions from the floor. And Rob, you'd made me aware in advance you were likely to ask something. So will I hand over to you at this point? Yeah. So Rob Rowe is a board member and also a tenant of Hanover. Those of you who don't know.
Yeah, as Gary has already said, the secretary chair and incoming chair are aware of the question anyway, so hopefully get handled. I've been asked to present this question by a number of members, some are present, some not present. Anyway, irrespective, and collect. It's actually pretty much over the last 12 months. So let me just read the question before we collect. It is our observation that the number of members of Hanover Scotland Housing Association attending annual general meetings has been in decline for a number of years. In part, this decline may be due to a reduction in the overall number of members of the association. We would like to suggest that the association report the total number of members on an annual basis at every AGM. With the availability of this information, it will be possible to decide if it is appropriate to conduct occasional membership drives amongst the tenants to encourage more of them to actively participate in the necessary services.
Thank you, Rob. Will I respond first and then handle it? So firstly, member and tenant involvement in the association is a really high priority for us. It's one of the most important issues. How could we engage with our tenants better? So Rob, I just wanted to thank you for raising that as a question. And you've raised it many times, actually. It's not new in some sense. And we have noted the decline in membership. I think Wendy and our answer would like to tell you that we do report membership annually. But one of the things I think in responding to that, one is to take that issue really seriously. And I think Angela, when she comes in here, I think make it clear that we do take it seriously, and maybe we should talk then about the next step. So if there's clearly a gap in how we are responding to tenant issues, we are always interested in this room in closing that gap as any of our tenants would do. So we want to respond positively and clearly with action. So will I go to you, Wendy, first to address the issue, the specific issue of numbers, and then if Angela then respond, if that's okay.
Like that. Hello, my name is Pat McCormick. I'm a Hanover Housing Association member for 20 years. I was also a member of the board of management alongside Johnson. We served on that for a few years. With old Hanover, because I've called you new Hanover, there's quite a sharp difference about tenant participation. And at that time, we did have someone called Diane McDonald, who was a tenant participation officer, and she worked her socks off. But she was also shared with trust. She went all over Scotland setting up tenants committees, and they worked quite well, and but they took an awful lot of actually maintaining. But since Dan, well, it all fell apart actually. I don't know around 2013. So they went, I didn't even know that Rob was a tenant participation, well, tenant
Member.
member on the board until last year, till the met in the flesh. And I do think that there's a huge lack of communication between head office and the developments. And in the old Hanover days, what used to happen is that members of the whole committee just come to developments and meet with the residents or tenants to ask them what they thought how things could be improved. But that's one thing that I've noticed. I've been in 3 different Hanover developments now, and one thing that a lot of the tenants have said that they just do not know who people are. They don't know what to say to them. We've got boards on the wall that's trying out information, but a lot of it's not relevant to us, and a lot of the people don't even recognise that it is relevant to us. So we would really like to see maybe another person who's directly responsible in contacting, either through law, which I think would be a good thing, but also from the director of the Housing Association.
Yeah, thank you, Pat. That's, do you want to raise something on this?
My name's Kate Beatley. I'm a newbie by everybody else's standards. I've only been in Hanover for 5.5 years. I actually would agree with what the lady said here. I do feel that communication and a lot of things is a bit lacking. It's not followed through. People don't know who people are. Up until December, I was still working. I'm now retired. I attended our meeting on site in the January. And while it was informative, I feel all the right people from head office were there. And I felt poor Connie was just, it was almost like she was facing a firing squad, which is not fair. She has her job to do, and I'm sure she does it extremely well. But there was a lot of things that were brought up. From what I've heard, it's things that have gone back and back and back. And a lot of it was finance. And there wasn't anybody there. I do feel that communication is lacking. A lot of people, and some of the sort of the younger ones might come in. They're maybe not the mindset. And I feel, yeah, it's just my accommodation. I don't need to worry about this, but yeah, you do need to worry about it because it is your home and you need to participate. There's no point in complaining about things to individuals. You need to come and support and be seen to. And I think it would help if some of the people that are in here did, I'm not saying every month, every 2 months, every 3 months, maybe didn't come into some of the complexes to people and getting people's thoughts and opinions and what have you.
Firstly, thanks again. I mean, there's a number of issues in there, aren't there? You've mentioned structures, how we structure our engagement with tenants, how we communicate, so what we give to you and how we listen to what you say and how we report back on what we've done about that. Who goes to these meetings and how engaged you feel?
I like something. You're waiting forever to come back. I work in customer services all my life, dealing with complaints, which is not.
So there's a speed of response issue there as well.
Now we had SLAs. Surely you must have SLAs about.
We've got KPIs. Yeah.
Yeah, when something needs to be resolved. Now I used to phone people and say, "Hi, just to make you aware, not forgotten about you. Don't have an answer as yet, but I am chasing it up." That goes a long way to keeping somebody happy, rather than somebody sitting there and going, "No, I've forgotten about it again. I have to chase it up again." And just another wee thing, some of your contractors at the moment, I think they think they're dealing with people that are 60 and over. They're not stupid people.
Definitely not.
But they treat them like stupid people. Yeah. They have no idea what kind of jobs these people held down. Yeah. Some of them are so incredibly intelligent, and you're just like, what? I just look for my neighbour, but my goodness, I'm speaking to you. I'm learning things, and I realise how switched on you are. I'm not a bunch of old buggers. don't treat them like that. Treat them with respect. And one of my neighbours in particular, they've had a particular contractor, God knows how many times now, and they're curtain rude to them, and that's not on.
You know, there is something there about how, so that kind of feedback, for example, we might not know that, you know, it's how we know that people are feeling that about a certain contractor. And then we can do it once we know there is something we do, but we don't know. And one of them is how we gather that information and feedback.
You just speak up.
Of course we do.
Oh, I'm making a fuss. You know, maybe it's just me. No, it's not just you.
So we're going to come back to the point of robberies, and hopefully we'll cover these issues. I'm going to go to Wendy and then Angela, if that's okay.
Okay. So in terms of our membership data, which was the first part of Rob's question, we do present it as part of the financial statements that's in the pack today. And on page, I think it's 56, I think that's the right page, it tells you it's headed up share capital because each member has a pound share in the organisation. So the number at today are, or at the end of the year, are 278. So we have members and we do present that information. And every time a member joins, obviously that adds on. What we do have to do in accordance with our rules is when tenants move on to another development or move away or pass away, unfortunately, we have to remove them from the membership. And also, if we don't hear from people within 5 years, then we also have to remove them. And that's just in accordance with the same rules that generally apply to most housing associations. So we do present that information and it's within the pack, and happy to answer any questions about that.
Questions here. I got that with my initial pack. Now, I responded. Possibly you might find that other people don't. You get quite a lot of information. Can they join at any other point?
You can join at any time throughout the year.
And going forward to say, to encourage people.
Yes.
I think there's probably a lot that we could do.
Yes. We do that, and we did a membership drive earlier in the year and had it on the development screens. I know not all developments have them, but we did do that. So we do tend to do that. The only time you can't join is, I think, within a fortnight of the AGM, because we need to do the members piece. So yes, it's not a problem for anyone to join, and obviously anybody who becomes a board member also joins as a member as well. But it tends to be tenants of the organisation.
Hold on, Rob. I'm just going to ask Angela to come back, and then we'll come back to you, if that's okay.
Yeah, and just I suppose follow up on the 2 points Rob was making around membership drives. We do more about that, and how do we do that? Absolutely. And Elaine McCaffrey's here, who has a what used to be called tenant participation officer, and we call the post something different now. Nikki is out and about all the time, going around all the developments, has a massive programme of work, which is all set out in what we call our customer engagement plan. So we have a clear plan around all of that. So I will ask you to have it. We'll think about how we get a chat with everyone, just saying what else could we do around those recruitment drives to hook people in to think about becoming members. There's always other tactics we can use. Did we get any new members from the latest recruitment drive?
Yeah.
We did?
Yeah.
So it definitely landed in some places. In terms of AGM attendance, Rob, your point was about dwindling tenant numbers at our AGM. And in the past, we've tried to be smart by having a party after the AGM, so that people come to the AGM, which many people think is a tad boring, so that the hook is, if you come to the AGM, we have the party afterwards. And when we were writing our new customer engagement plan, and we were asking a lot of our tenants around the country if they still wanted that one big event in Edinburgh, or would they like more local events throughout the year, the resounding answer was, no thank you to that big event. Let's have all the things out there in all of our developments. So we've always got to flex and bend from what was the norm a few years ago. That's what our tenants have told us, generally, what they would like to see. Will we go back to having a big party after the AGM sometime and again in the future? Who knows? If that's what gets people in and we think it's worth the time and effort doing that, because the cost it was to the business of shipping everyone here from all over the country was phenomenal. So post-COVID, the message was very clearly, no thank you. So that's always worth thinking about, isn't it? The other point that is worth mentioning is the executive team and our senior management team spend a lot of time going out and visiting developments. In this month alone, I have probably been out to about 12. So if we haven't been to your development, absolutely, you'll see me next month now. But we all do it because it's such an important thing to keep in touch with the real things that are going on. And yes, we have challenges with some of our contractors. Guess how many contractors we have? 200. And so not all of them are 5-star all of the time. So if there are any that are not performing in a way or behaving in a way that is acceptable, let us know loud and clear so that we can tackle them. And most of our contractors really do want to do a brilliant job. So the more we know, the better. So I think the other point that was generally made about communication, I'll have a wee laugh to myself because it's the one thing we talk about every week. How do we get the communication to our customers back and forth and our employees? Because remember, we've got 600 people across every corner of this country. How do we keep building on it and getting it better? So people like Connie, who's the housing officer, knows as much as she needs to know, but also that we are recognising that people want communication in very different ways, in very different styles and at very different levels. And it's a never-ending challenge, absolutely never-ending challenge that we always try to do better with. So if there is anything else you can suggest to us, we would love to hear your suggestions about what else we could do to keep improving on all of that. So I think that's the main points I've covered.
I just want to come back to Rob. You were going to ask a question. I don't know if you still want to ask.
So it's kind of come on. This is a very small thing and directed at Wendy. But when she presentation, shall we say, of the share capital under item 15, can you please rewrite it, re-swizzle it, whatever, I mean, there's a loose thing, to make it very clear that this is not just a financial issue within the
Yep. Yeah, absolutely.
record, how many are how many left, how many join, that could be simply be redrafted to fill the existing information.
Absolutely, that's not a problem. We can easily do that. Yep.
Yeah, and we could have raised that at board and handled it there. But just to, if you think it is really interesting. Firstly, I'm very grateful you're raising it. It may surprise you, it may not. But I think just bear in mind what Angela said. We worry about this all the time. We talk about it at board almost at every meeting around, what were our tenants saying about us, what's on their minds and what's worrying them. Are we doing enough? Is there more we could or should do? We're doing a couple of things at the moment which might feed into it. So we have a governance review that's ongoing at the moment. And part of that might be, how do we, in governance terms, reflect the views of tenants within our own structures and employees? Anything, if you've got some suggestions for us, you think with me, and listen to you, Kate, are you quite a few? If there's anything we can do, we are very open to do that.
And Kate, by the way, you'll not be leaving this building without us signing you up for all the groups.
I mean, I suppose because I more recently left the working environment, and because I do tend to not just sit there with all these small ideas, and I listen. I mean, we have 2 official coffee mornings a month, and then we kind of have 2 unofficial coffee mornings a month. and speaking to people, and I'll speak to anybody, I can pick up on what people are saying, and a lot of people don't like standing up and, you know, people looking at them, and they're quite happy to cower in the background.
Sure.
And let somebody else for them.
Kate, thank you. I have to draw this to a close. We're starting to run behind, but thank you. Thank you. I'm going to end the meeting with just some thanks. I'm going to run through them quite quickly. Firstly, thank you to everyone attending today. I think that's been a really good conversation at the end. It's raised some issues and profile that we will respond to. So thank you for everyone for attending today. I hope you've learned something as well from attendance. I want to thank Andy and AAB for helping us through the external audit and for their report. A personal thanks from me to the board. This is my last meeting as chair. The board have been enormously supportive of me throughout my time as chair, and I think it's an excellent board, and it's going to be an excellent board going forward with Margaret. And also thanks to the management team again for their support to me personally in my role as chair, and for all the work that we do. I mean, it makes a difference to you. You mentioned you still remember people that came along, listened to you, and did something and helped. So people make a huge difference. I'm always inspired by that. Thanks to Margaret, who's going to take over as the next chair of the board, and hopefully she's really excited by that prospect. And I think that then just brings a close the annual general meeting. So thank you again. And that's the meeting closed formally. Thank you.